Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Nelson. I would like to apologize for the delay. For some reason, I was logged out of all of my streaming services, and I just had like the biggest problem trying to start up, and I had no idea what to do. So I had to. On top of that, I was also delayed a little bit in my meeting, so I apologize for the delay because that's just a mistake that I literally couldn't even fix because I had no idea what in the world was the problem. But I ended up getting it to work, and I'm streaming on all my platforms now. I don't know why it took me out. It's like my computer's been acting up. It's been weird. I don't understand it, but we move on. We be moving. Now, speaking of moving, we are going to talk about Team USA against South Sudan and how Team USA is going to be moving over to Paris very, very soon to start the Olympic Games. And we're also going to talk about, the players, the roster, the box scores, everything that was going on in the South Sudan matchup against Team USA. Then in the second segment, I will be talking about the WNBA All-Star Game. I will be talking about the interesting format that they use as well as the results of the All-Star Game. Because unlike the NBA All-Star Game, this WNBA All-Star Game is actually a little bit more competitive than the NBA's All-Star Game, where it's just, a lob fest where everyone just throw lobs to each other. And then in the third segment, I'm going to be doing some grading on some draft picks. I'm only going to be doing up to, I believe, my list goes up to like 13. So I'm just going to be doing the top 13 picks and just giving them a grade. And they're based off of their performances in the Summer League so far. I saw somebody in the comments who was interested in what the list would be. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And then when Summer League is over, I'll do a list of every single player that participated and that was in the draft, that participated in the Summer League, and I'll give them a grade. And then in the fourth segment, we will do some basketball news, talking about, different players signing contracts, as well as Evan Mobley signing a huge contract and how I think that contract is actually, well worth the Cavs' time and their money. We also have a very special fifth segment that I like to reveal at the end of the fourth segment, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Before I begin, however, I'd like to remind everybody to please go ahead to use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment. Once again, the link is GSMCPodcast.net. Helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is GSMCPodcast.net. And without further ado, let's talk about the United States basketball team and obviously the greatest player to ever walk the planet Earth and the greatest player on the entire team, LeBron James, because, like it or not, he's the best player. And the United States ended up going up against South Sudan. And as you could see by the final score, very, very close. Super close. In fact, this was probably the biggest story about USA, the fact that South Sudan even came so close to beating the United States. Nobody expected South Sudan to come out and hoop like they did. And on top of that, nobody expected the game to be this close. Everyone thought it was going to be a blowout. But Anthony Davis, he said this at the end of the game: you win by a mile or you win by an inch, but a win is a win. So I think right off the bat, I think people are blowing this out of proportion, and they're all just like, oh, wow, Team USA was struggling against South Sudan. Michael Jordan never struggled against South Sudan, this, that, and the other. Well, guess what? South Sudan wasn't even a country when Michael Jordan was playing the Olympics. So, But aside from that, I mean, regardless of, how close the team was to losing, it doesn't matter how close the game was. What matters is that when you needed them the most, when they needed to meet the moment, they met the moment and they ended up winning the game in the end. And that's all that there is to it. Because again, in the Olympics, it's completely different than a NBA playoff where it's a 7-game series and the best team is going to win. That is a completely different thing, because in these kinds of playoffs, just one bad game is all you need to say goodbye. And like when the group phase is done, right, and the qualifying rounds are done, and they're in the the actual playoff of the Olympics, these games are going to be decided by one game, and it's going to be up to these players to perform. So as long as they're meeting the moment when they desperately need it, then I don't really see a problem. I don't see a problem with them playing this way. Now, player of the game. Obviously, it is the glorious king himself, the GOAT, the greatest basketball player to ever walk the earth, LeBron James. Now, as alluded to before, there was actually debate about who was going to take the final shot. Also, I'm just going to bring this down just a little bit. There we go, just so you guys can see the actual logo. All right. Now, there was actually debate on who was supposed to be taking the final shot, right? On Team USA, team full of the best basketball players in the NBA, who takes the final shot? Well, LeBron answered that question in the previous matchup. He was the one that ended up winning the game for the United States in the end. Anthony Edwards, when he was asked what sort of, helped Team USA from losing this game, Anthony Edwards flat out said LeBron James. So a team full of the best players in the entire United States, right? In the entire NBA, they all looked to LeBron to win the game in the end. That shows just how talented he is. And surprisingly, people still hated. People still found a way to hate, saying, oh, well, the game should never have been close anyway. Or, what else did he say? Oh, he is the least American out there. And honestly, why? What is the point of this? I genuinely don't understand how someone can be hated on after winning a game for the national team. It doesn't make any sense to me. And, this goes to show, the final scoreboard goes to show that international basketball is, really picking up. And so many countries are getting so much better at playing basketball that it's USA is going to need a run for their money, right? Or they're going to give USA a run for their money. Now, LeBron shot 10 for 14 from the field and was super efficient, had the highest efficiency in the entire game for the United States. And another player for the United States that played pretty well was, of course, Anthony Davis. Now, I know what some of you guys are thinking. Joel Embiid, he played pretty well in this game as well. He was 5 for 6, ended up getting 14 points and 7 rebounds and 2 assists. The reason why I don't have him up here is because Anthony Davis has a double-double, and on top of that, it's the Laker duo. How could I not put them both up here? So, obviously, Anthony Davis, while he wasn't that efficient shooting the ball from the field, he was still valuable for the team, getting rebounds, as well as playing defense along inside the paint. He ended the game with 2 blocks as well, and was arguably a better defender in this game than Joel. But aside from that, this team really, really struggled. And it's not because, they were playing bad or anything, but the other team, South Sudan, they were playing really well. They were hooping. Marial Shayok, one of the players for South Sudan, ended up getting 24 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists. And Carlick Jones for South Sudan ended up getting a triple-double. A triple-double in a FIBA basketball game is incredibly impressive, especially when it's against the United States. Ended with 16 points, 11 rebounds, and 11 assists. That is fantastic, great performance, and it should also be noted that JT Thor ended up hitting a huge what would have been a game-winning shot had LeBron not converted on that layup to finally win the game for Team USA. So, these players on South Sudan, they represented their country the best they possibly could, and this only, brings the awareness to South Sudan. This brings awareness to South Sudan on a global scale, because now there's going to be people that are going to try to give some of these players opportunities to compete in high leverage games, competitive leagues, whatever you want to call it. Wenyen Gabriel for South Sudan, and a former player for the Lakers, he ended up saying, "We don't have any indoor basketball courts in our country. We don't have anything like that. We're a bunch of refugees that came together for a few weeks out of the year. This is much bigger than basketball for us. So this, it brings the awareness around, South Sudan, as well as possibly inspires a bunch of more athletes from South Sudan to actually compete in basketball and in all sorts of, showdowns, however you want to call it. But obviously, this was another performance, another GOAT performance that cemented LeBron's legacy. Just perfect performance, great, GOAT. It was recently announced that he is going to be the first ever men's basketball player to bear the flag in the United States, when they're for the United States, when they're walking, in Paris. Because, a lot of the team, well, not really the team, but Team USA and all the countries, whenever they're getting presented in the Olympics, they have this flag bearer. LeBron is now the first basketball player to bear a flag. And I don't see Jordan bearing no flag in the Olympics. Yeah, that's going to be a stat. Flags, being a flag bearer, LeBron, Jordan, 0. I can see it now. But the first half of this game, South Sudan, they had us in the first half, not going to lie. So while the final score was 101-100, the halftime score, Team USA, they only ended up scoring 44 points in the first half. And they were 1 for 12 from 3. So they also had 9 turnovers, which was one of the key things and one of the biggest reasons why I think this team really struggled in the game and why the game was so close. But in the second half, they ended up clawing their way, 57 points, 6 for 16 from the 3, and ended up getting 3 turnovers. And my football coach from high school, he used to always say, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And the United States, they started out really bad, had us in the first half, not going to lie, had everyone in the first half, but they ended up pulling through with what they needed to do, and really, it's I'm just waiting for Carlick Jones to get a contract from the NBA. That's really what I'm waiting for. The guy ended up getting a triple-double against the United States. That's nothing short of impressive, and it should be highly praised. I'm not sure how often that's happened in the history of FIBA basketball. I'm going to have to look into it now that I think about it, because I have no idea how many players end up getting triple-doubles against the United States. So definitely something that I'm going to look into. But with that, we are out of time for this first segment. So now we will go ahead and go into the second segment, where I focus my shift towards the WNBA and the All-Star game that ended up happening there, the interesting format that they had, as well as, my thoughts around the game. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this second segment, I'm going to be talking about the WNBA and the All-Star game that was recently going on. I'm not going to talk about the rest of the events for the WNBA All-Stars because, I mean, that would take up way too much time, and I didn't really watch the rest of those events, unfortunately. I was more focused on the actual All-Star game because I was very interested in the format as well as, how competitive that game actually was. Now, and on top of that, I also wanted to watch Caitlin Clark. I mean, come on. Everyone wants to watch Caitlin. But before I begin, I would like to remind everybody to please go ahead, use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment. The link is GSMCPodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is GSMCPodcast.net. And without further ado, let's go right ahead and go into this second segment, which is going to be about the WNBA All-Star Game. Now, one of the things that, interested me the most was the format of the WNBA All-Star Game, right? How the USA's, well, not really USA's, the NBA's, the NBA's format for the All-Star Game is very, very different. Sometimes you have, West versus East, like we recently had last year. Sometimes you have Team LeBron against, Team Steph Curry, Team Kevin Durant, whichever, right? And then they draft the teams, which wasn't really that good of an idea. If I'm going to be honest, it wasn't interesting at all. Then there's most of the time, it's West at East, and not really meh. It's meh, we're so used to it that different formats, they're going to be ooh, very cool, but at the same time, it's not something that's really competitive. It doesn't really get people in a competitive feel. And then they also tried to change the format again when Kobe died, rest in peace, where the final quarter was some sort of weird math where it was the most team points scored. So let's say the team was at 106 points, right? You'd have to win by scoring 24 more points if you were the team that was scoring 106, and then the team that was below by however much, they had to get to that total before the other. It was very confusing. It's confusing to even explain. And so this format that the WNBA has is actually far more interesting, I will say. So they have Team USA, the women selected for the USA roster, against the WNBA's All-Star team, right? So voted by the fans. So Team USA was composed of Brenna Stewart, Aja Wilson, Diana Taurasi, all of those players, Brittany Griner, Kelsey Plum, Sabrina Ionescu, all of those players. Meanwhile, the WNBA had stars like, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Boston from the Indiana Fever as well, and the player of the game, who was Arike Ogunbowale, again, forgive me if I completely botched that name, but she ended up scoring 34 points, in the win against Team USA. Yes, Team WNBA, the team of all-stars that mostly composed, some of them were rookies, right? Well, there were only 2 rookies, but most of them weren't on, Team USA ever. They ended up beating the Team USA women's team, which is said to be, the best female players in the world. So Team WNBA ended up beating Team USA, which, is just, in my opinion, the perfect revenge story for Caitlin and Angel Reese for getting snubbed from Team USA. I genuinely feel like those women should have been a part of Team USA, but unfortunately, especially Caitlin. But unfortunately, at least from where I'm standing, it feels like the whole WNBA just doesn't really. They have a mark against all of them. Against Angel Reese and Caitlin, they all have it out to get them. And this game was very, very competitive. From the jump, not a single player from Team USA wanted to give Team WNBA a chance at winning. They were so focused on stopping Caitlin and Angel Reese. Those two, Caitlin was getting pressed up at full court. I am not kidding. In an all-star game, Caitlin was being pressed up at full court by Kelsey Plum. Not a big fan of Kelsey Plum, for reasons I don't want to get into. But aside from that, Angel Reese was also getting a lot of attention when she was on offense. Like, they rarely tried to get any of them in a rhythm. They didn't even care about any other WNBA player. They just focused on Caitlyn and Angel. They did not want them scoring. Caitlyn did not have a great game, but didn't really expect her to have a great game with the way that Team USA was playing her. Like, they were only focused on her and they did not want her to score, which is unfortunate for them because Ogunbowale ended up cooking them, ended up absolutely destroying them in the box scores. Not to mention, Brenna Stewart also played really well for Team USA, but overall, Team USA, they ended up losing at the end of the day. And as a Caitlin Clark fan, this is what they get. This is exactly what they get for not putting Caitlin Clark on the team. But at the end of the day, like, if we're going to talk, strictly about, I'm just fixing my light, I apologize for that noise. If we're going to talk about strictly, like, is Team US, like, just about Team USA and their chances of winning the Olympics, is it in jeopardy since they don't have Caitlyn or Angel? No. I don't think that the women's basketball team for the United States is going to lose to any other country. I don't think that's going to happen. Like, even though they do not have Caitlyn, which I wish they had, she's arguably the cleanest player on the basketball court, aside from someone like, Sabrina Ionescu and Brenna Stewart and all of those great female players. Now, I don't think this is really going to affect Team USA that much. And every single time that Team WNBA beats Team USA in these All-Star games, Team USA ends up winning the gold. And on top of that, they have never not won the gold ever since the women's basketball ended up becoming a sport. Like, I don't think they've ever, it's rare that the women's basketball, like the women's Team USA, ever even loses a game to any kind of other female basketball organization, simply because, it's been around, the WNBA has either been around longer, and the United States provides women way more opportunities than other countries really do. So the other countries are still trying to play catch up with Team USA, with women's basketball and things like that. So their opponents are probably going to be way, way easier than going up against Team WNBA, which, it's a good way to start. It's a good way to, wake up this WNBA team. And, quite honestly, I really don't like how I just can't stress that enough, just how much they all just despise Caitlyn for whatever reason. Because, again, getting picked up in full court in an all-star game is insane. I don't think Steph Curry doesn't even get picked up at full court. Steph Curry doesn't even get picked up at half court in an all-star game. And here she is getting picked up at full court. Like, they are out for blood. It seems like they were out for blood in the entire thing. Now, I'm just trying to pull up Team USA women's record in Olympics, because I don't think it's very rare that they end up losing a game. Like, it's very, very, very rare. And for some reason, the server isn't loading. Okay, wow. I can't give you that number anyway, so I apologize for that. But regardless, I mean, this was a good challenge for Team USA, but now it's time for them to win, right? It's time for Team USA to win the gold, and that's exactly what's going to happen. And eventually, I should have also noted that Caitlyn and Angel, they have never been teammates before, up until this instance, and they alluded to, being teammates on Team USA. So Caitlyn really, really wants to play with Angel, and Angel really wants to play with Caitlyn. So in case all of you guys think that, they just don't like each other, Angel and Caitlyn don't like each other, it seems more like a facade for Angel. Like, Angel's just playing into that villain role. And I mean, I don't really like the comments that she makes, trying to, garner some attention to herself. I think her game is enough to do the talking. That's just me personally. But, she's still a fantastic player, and I have nothing against either of them. I hope that they really I really hope they pedal the WNBA to making way more money than what it's already making. And I also hope that they end up being some great female basketball players in the future, and they inspire other females to be great as well. Like, just imagine Kobe Bryant. Imagine if he was alive right now. He would absolutely love to see the state in which the WNBA is right now. Like, he would probably watch every single game, and he'd probably talk about every single game. Like, he would straight up endorse Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese at the same time. Like, without a doubt. Maybe more Angel Reese than Caitlin, but I don't know. I feel something tells me that he's going to really that he would like Caitlin a little bit more than he would like Angel. But who knows? Anyways, with that out of the way, we are out of time for this second segment. So now I will go ahead and go into the third segment where I give my grades for some of the draft picks in the Summer League, based off of their Summer League performance. Now, I'm only going to do up to number 14 because, if I was to do from all the way, from every single pick in the draft, I would be here all day. And definitely not going to try and do that. So this is only going to be for the 14 picks. And so I will be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned if you guys are interested in hearing that out.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, I'm going to be giving some grades for the for the NBA draft and the draft picks from 1 through 14. So I'm just going to be talking a little bit about, my opinions on their game. I watched a lot of highlights. I watched a lot of the entirety of games over the weekend. And, here we have a list of, or well, not really a list, but, my grades for all of these players and how they performed. Now, unfortunately, I don't really have a picture for every single one of these players because, again, if I were to pull up a picture for every single one of them, we're going to be here forever. But I do have for the top 5 because I feel like the top 5 are definitely the most important picks in the entirety of the draft. Those are going to be the ones that are most remembered aside from Bronny James. But we're not going to be talking about Bronny because he wasn't in the top 15. Or in the top 14 for that matter, right? So we will go ahead and first off, I want to say this draft class has been rather underwhelming. The only news and the only information that we've really heard about from this draft class is about Bronny. It's literally only about Bronny. Literally every other pick has barely been talked about. So it's really difficult. It was really difficult to make this list where I can get no information from outside sources and, other opinions like that. But I was able to watch the games. I was able to do all of that. And so here we have it. Now, Zachary Rasacher, probably literally the least talked about number 1 pick in the entire NBA draft in the history of drafts, aside from Paolo Banchero. Him and Paolo never get talked about by the media. I don't know what it is. They barely get talked about. And because of that, their bad performances also barely get talked about, specifically Zach's bad performances. Now, I just want to say that these grades, they might be a little bit harsh, but they're mainly harsh because everyone on the internet was so quick to talk down about Bronny and so quick to call him a bust and so quick to say that he wasn't going to be anything better than, 4 points per game scorer. There was Jaylen Brown that allegedly said that he wasn't going to be a star player or a pro player. He didn't think allegedly he said, I don't think he's a pro, right? So this is going to be incredibly harsh because the rest of these players, they are ranked, they were picked so much higher than Bronny, and yet some of them aren't even playing nearly as good as him. So this is going to be harsh, especially with this one right here. So he only played 2 games, so this is partly why I didn't want to really do this, because 2 games is not a good enough sample size for me. But in those 2 games, he finished 11 for 27 from the field. That is awful. That is really, really bad. As the number 1 pick in the draft, that is bad. Like, no way around it. And again, I understand it's summer league, it's early, but it doesn't matter because everyone was so quick to jump on Bronny, so I'm so quick to jump on this guy. He is getting a C- grade. I don't like his performance. Like, I genuinely think that the Hawks messed up on this pick, but like in the beginning. However, the second pick in the draft wasn't much better either. And more on Zach. Like, again, his performance, it wasn't really all that. But then again, the reason why he doesn't get like any lower of a grade is because that I feel like he's going to benefit from playing with Trae Young, right? Like, his overall talent is incredibly underwhelming, but when he's surrounded by a player like Trae Young, I think he's going to be rather good. Now, here we have Alexander Sarr. Now, this one is going to be rather ruthless because Sarr was horrible in his first game. He went 0 for 15 in his first game. He did not impact the game at all aside from getting rebounds. He only made 1 shot in his last 2 games. So he's getting a D-, and he's lucky that it's not an F. And the only reason why it's not an F is because it's Summer League. That is literally the only reason why he is not getting an F. Because I like to give players the benefit of the doubt sometimes, but this man was awful. And being a lottery pick, like, again, I could be being a little too harsh. I understand that. But being a lottery pick and being worse than Bronny when Bronny was getting crucified for not being able to shoot and do this and do that, it's unacceptable. Like, the overreactions, yes, they are very common, and we've seen a player play really well in the Summer League that end up being bad in the NBA, and we see it vice versa. But this is just off the Summer League, so for now, he is getting a D- grade because, boo, he was not it. Now, the only good news that he has is that his defense was rather good. Like, his defense was all right, but, being 7 foot, I expect your defense to be all right. Really, you're not a number 2 pick in the draft just because your defense is fantastic. Like, it has to be some ridiculous Hall of Fame level defense that no one has ever seen before to be picked at the 2nd overall just because of defense, right? Now, that's really the only good positive part about his game that I've seen. So now we will go ahead and go into arguably one of the best pickups in the entire draft, Reed Sheppard. Now, when I was watching him play and I was watching the highlights and I was watching the rest of like the whole entirety of the games, he is fantastic. He's averaging 20 points, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds in 4 games in the Summer League. He is balling out of his mind. Now, he's arguably been the best rookie in this entire class in the Summer League. Now, he was statistically the best 3-point shooter in his draft class, and although the numbers from Vegas, they aren't really that great. I mean, 5 for 18 from 3 in 4 games, not entirely impressive. It's like, again, you give these players time to translate it into the NBA, like, because, it's still Summer League. That's one thing that I will give every player the benefit of the doubt. Now, on top of that, the fact that, his 3-point shot isn't there, what is there is his defense. He's recorded 11 steals in 4 games, meaning that in every single game, he's getting about 3 steals or 2 steals in a game, which is great. Like, I mean, for a 3-point shooter, having the defense and being able to turn stops into offensive possessions and fast breaks is incredibly valuable. And I'm really curious exactly what his ceiling is going to be. I'm just looking at my notes, by the way. And it seems like, Houston has found the right guard. It seems like they found a really good guard. And so I give this a very solid A+. I mean, this is probably going to be the only A+ on this list that you guys will see. So next, we move on to Stephon Castle. Now, as I've alluded to before, Stephon Castle, he did get injured in one of his summer league games, but aside from that, from what I saw, he was pretty solid as a player. He ended up recording 22 points in his only game, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists, and he was able to knock down 2 3-pointers as well. Now, he didn't shoot the ball during his season in UConn that much, or he didn't really shoot it that efficiently, I should say, or at a high volume. And that's something that he's going to have to work on in the NBA because, it's a 3-point shooting league. You got to be able to hit the 3 like that. But he has some really high basketball IQ. And he's definitely a really good facilitator from what I was able to see. And he is one of the best on-ball defenders in his entire draft class. That's one of the things that's really going to be valuable for him. The fact that he can be a really good defender at the 1, because there aren't really that many competent guards, that are competent on both ends of the floor. You usually have a guard that's competent on offense as well as being competent on defense. And I have a feeling that, the fact that he's competent on both ends of the floor is going to make him a really good pick. And so I'm going to give this an A- because, again, pairing him with Victor, being that facilitator, that would mean his effort can be focused on both sides of the floor. One of the more popular things that we see a lot of guards and a lot of defenders, one of the more popular things that they do is they end up They end up focusing more on offense. For example, Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is not as much of a defender as he used to be because more of his energy is now focused on offense as opposed to being focused on defense. Giving Stephon Castle the balance of both, being able to focus equally on both the offense and the defense, without needing to heavily rely on the other because he's not going to be the best option on the team. It's going to be Victor. That would really help his game. And paired up with Greg Popovich, again, Pop wasn't really a good coach back then. Well, not really back then. I meant a few years and the most recent years with the Spurs. Now, that may be because the team has been really, really atrocious. But I think that the defensive side with Stephon Castle is going to be incredibly valuable for the team. I hope he succeeds. I hope he gets very good with Victor. Now, next is the number 5 pick in the draft, which was Ron Holland for the Detroit Pistons. Now, Holland was interesting, right? And in some of these games, I had to watch the Pistons games. They were just pain. I just did not like watching the Pistons games at all. One of the things that I noted about him was that his motor was crazy. He could run for days. And he's also a great cutter to the basket that I noticed. And he's cut to the rim numerous times. And he struggled with the 3-point shot in the G League on his, on Ignite. And he finished 4 for 17 in Las Vegas from 3, but that will improve as time goes on. That's one of these things about these guards. The 3-point shooting usually improves, and someone is calling my phone. That is always fantastic. But aside from that, I mean, he fits Detroit rather well, and how should I say? The path for him to be a star in the league it's there. It's definitely there. He could definitely be an option for Detroit. But aside from that, I'm going to give it a B just because, I don't really know much. And with that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and end off this segment because we are a little bit early or a little bit late. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about the next segment. And I'll go ahead and, I'll continue my list a little bit later because I didn't really expect this to be, I didn't expect this to be a really long time. I thought I was going to be talking about it for a little bit. But I will continue with the 4th segment right after this short break.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC. to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And, I apologize for, the noise in the background. It was really annoying. And unfortunately, it kind of cut me off from what I wanted to do. But aside from that, we were running out of time anyway, so it's not like I was going to be able to get the rest of my notes because, again, I have so many other draft picks that I could talk about. So I'm probably going to continue that a little bit, in this segment, as well as talk about, but first I want to talk about some basketball news that is going around, and in particularly the new contract signing for the Cavs. Evan Mobley, he ended up signing a huge contract with the Cavs, ended up being worth around 4 years, right? And actually, no, pardon me, I messed up the year. 5 years, and it is going to be worth $224 million, which could end up being worth $269 million. And this is a maximum rookie extension. And a lot of people, they were saying, Evan Mobley doesn't really deserve all that money. Now, as I mentioned before, Franz Wagner, he was also one of these players that ended up making this much money. But unlike Franz Wagner, I think Evan Mobley has a huge chance of being a very, very solid option for the Cavs. If anything, he has the chance of being a number 2 or a number 1 option. Remember in the beginning of free agency, one of the options that the Cavs had was to either, keep Donovan Mitchell and trade away Garland, keep Garland, trade away Donovan, or trade them both and build around Evan Mobley. Now, that option was there for a reason. Evan Mobley is a very, very solid player. He is fantastic on both sides of the floor. Now, he might not put up, crazy numbers because, he still has to share the ball with Donovan and all the other players and Darius Garland as well. But Evan Mobley is a phenomenal player. He played really well in the playoffs as well. In the final game of the playoffs, he ended up scoring 33 points. Now, one of the things that a lot of people are going to overlook with Evan Mobley and his stats was that, he only averaged 15 points per game. Well, he was injured for a majority of the season. And I really think that if he wasn't injured, he would have been playing so much better. Now, he's arguably a top 10 power forward in this league. I can't really name many power forwards that are better than him. And one of the things that separates him a lot from power forwards is his defense. His defense is elite. One of the best power forward defenders that you will see. And on top of that, he has an offensive game to boot. So he has everything that you could possibly ask for in a power forward aside from playmaking. But really, when you're playing the power forward, that's not something that's really that's detrimental to your success. It's not a make or break. So I think this is a great pickup. Another thing that ended up happening in the basketball world, and another free agent signing, was Sam Hauser from the Boston Celtics. He ended up getting picked up again, and he signed a 4-year, $45 million contract with the Boston Celtics. Again, this is a lot of money to be giving the entire lineup because they are well over the second apron, I believe, with the amount of money that they're paying Tatum and Jaylen Brown. But aside from that, I really don't feel like it's that big of a deal because the Celtics, they're going to be title contenders for a very long time. So they've spent their summer signing championship rotation to contract extensions. Brad Stevens has proved to value continuity within his team, especially after their run in the 2023-2024 season. And so, keeping the core lineup intact, it's really going to help them. They probably have the best chances in the entire Eastern Conference to win it again. Now, if they don't win, maybe, hindsight will say that this move was rather bad. But again, the salary cap is increasing every single year, especially with this new TV deal. So in the end, these kinds of contracts might not even be that bad. Now, really, I kind of want to continue talking about my list of, the players in their draft. So I'm just going to go ahead and give off some more, because I really, I wish I could have continued doing that for an even longer segment. And I'm sure most of you guys are interested in some of these draft picks, a little bit more interested than some of the free agent signings. So Tijan Salon, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. He's for Charlotte, and he's actually one of the biggest surprises when Charlotte ended up drafting him. A lot of people didn't expect him to get so high up on the draft list. Now, he is a 6'9" Frenchman. Again, there's a trend in the NBA going on. It's called the French Revolution, where it's ever since Victor Wembanyama got picked up from France, since he is a French basketball player, every single team in the draft was looking for French players to draft. It was so many of them that were drafted in the top 10 alone, and I believe it was the most, and it was the first time that French basketball players were drafted back-to-back, number 1 and number 2. And again, it's a French Revolution. And so he's 6'9". Everyone just wants their own Wemby, I swear. And he showed flashes of greatness. He showed his ability to score. He was able to score, and was able to dunk on people and things like that. However, his three-point shooting was very bad. He was 1 for 10 from beyond the three-point line. And not really many games to judge off of by this player. So I'm going to give him a solid C+, just because, again, that three-point shooting could be a lot better. And, he averaged 9 points in Vegas in the last 3 games, in the 3 games that he played. But that was really the only impressive stat that he was, the impressive averages that he was able to accumulate. Someone being 6'9", I really expected him to get a little bit more rebounds, and I also expected him to just be a little bit better. I don't know why, especially being picked so high. But again, I am a little bit more harsh because, Bronny was getting ruthlessly criticized. But I digress. Now, Donovan Clingan for the Portland Trailblazers. He ended up averaging 8 rebounds and 4.3 blocks in just under 26 minutes per game. He is such a talented defender from the games that I've seen, and he only made 2 total 3-pointers during his sophomore season at UConn. But aside from that, I think this is, it would have been a great pickup had they not already had a center in the starting lineup with DeAndre Ayton. But this man and his blocks, seriously, 4.3 blocks in under 26 minutes, that's amazing. And so I'm going to have to give that a B+. Maybe it's close to an A-, high B+, because again, defense, and I really value defense, especially when it's coming from a center, and just the lack of three-point shooting, not a big fan of it, but again, that's not really where his game is going to be. Next, we have Rob Dillingham for the Minnesota Timberwolves. He was drafted by the Spurs, and then he was quickly traded over to the Timberwolves. So he was all right. I think he was all right. He ended up getting 25 points with 12 assists against the Magic in that one game. So yes, he was very, very talented. And, he's a very quick guard. He's got that quick first step. He's very shifty with the ball as well. That was from what I was able to see. And he ended up getting his opening game, however, he was struggling with 4 points and 5 assists, but he posted at least 10 points and 6 assists in his last 4 games with, in the summer league. So, that one game was a little bit meh, a little off, but again, averaging at least 10 points and 6 assists in every single game. Very, very solid for a point guard. So I do have to give that an A minus. And the only reason why it's not really that much higher is because of his defense. But again, being valued on the offensive side of the ball will really help the Timberwolves out. So I think that's pretty solid. I think they have a very solid player. Next, we have the Zach Edey, the friendly giant, as my cousin likes to call him, I believe. And, I mean, again, he is ridiculous. Now, he ended up, in the first game, recording 14 points and 15 rebounds, as well as 4 blocks. And he's one of those prospects where it's like you either think he's going to be good or you think he's going to be bad, and there's no in between. So he did have a really good night in his opening debut, and that was really sort of the only game that I could really judge off of him. So I have to give him like a B, just because, like, again, he's 7'4", but he's really slow on his feet, and there's already a 7'4" center that is so much better on his feet, so much faster, this, that, and the other. And I mean, I think that, being 7'4" in the NBA is going to be rather valuable, but that's also going to make you a pretty big liability on the defense if you can't rotate out quick enough. So while it is very solid in the paint, it probably won't work against every single matchup out there, so I'm going to have to give it a B, maybe a B minus, somewhere around there. Again, these are really harsh. And finally, before I go into the final segment, I will also finish off my list in the final segment. We have the 10th pick, Cody Williams from the Utah Jazz. Now, he shot 17 for 23 on shots around the rim, according to Synergy. That's 73%, which is fantastic. And that's honestly like the most impressive part about his game, in my opinion. Like, the fact that he was able to finish around the rim so consistently. And that was an issue when he was on Colorado. So this was really huge. Like, this aspect of this game that he added onto himself in the summer league, I can only see his game just getting better and better as his years in the NBA continue. Now, his best showing was his best game was against Dallas, when he ended with 21 points, 9 for 15 shooting, and was able to get 4 assists as well as 3 rebounds. Now, while this was the only, positive performance, he had 3 games in the summer league with less than 7 points and scored 10 or more in the other 4 games. So, a little bit mixed. So I'm going to have to give it a B minus, just because, I don't really know exactly what to make of this player yet. So that's all I have in the 4th segment. And so with that out of the way, we can go ahead into the 5th segment, which we will talk about Team USA and who they're going to play up against next, because their next game is in 2 hours from now. And I will also probably continue the list that I have going on right now, and because I really do want to finish the list. So I will be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned. And we are back with the fifth and the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this final segment, I'm going to be talking about the United States and them playing Germany today, which, well, in a few hours, I should say, as well as continue my list with the top draft picks, because again, it is, it's a pretty long list. Couldn't get through it all in the entire segment. And wait just a minute. There is some free agency news that I will have to get into right now before I actually start with this segment. So just give me 1 minute. All right, there we go. I just had to get, all the information out. I apologize for that. So Spencer Dinwiddie just recently signed a 1-year deal with the Dallas Mavericks yet again. So again, this isn't the first time that Dinwiddie has been on the Mavericks before. And so he signs a 1-year deal. I was actually trying to find, just how much the deal was worth. But there's apparently, they still haven't confirmed exactly how much money he's going to be making when he, on Dallas yet. So this is according to Tim McMahon from ESPN. Again, forgive me if I completely botched that last name. And he was the sixth man for the Mavs at one point. So this is probably going to be the same role that he's going to have, on the Mavs. I don't see it changing, right? I don't see this role being any different for when he was on the Mavs. And to be honest, that really seems like the role that best fits him. And so, aside from that, we can go right ahead and get into the actual fifth segment, which is going to be about, Team USA and the fact that they're going to play against Germany in this next matchup. And really, they struggled against South Sudan, so everyone is expecting that Germany is also going to put up a fight against the United States. But one of the things that is going to get overlooked is the fact that Germany, let me rephrase that. One of the things that's going to get overlooked is that the United States is most likely going to be much better prepared for this game than they were in the last game. One of the things that Steve Kerr said in the press game, in the post-game conference, was how he didn't properly prepare Team USA for South Sudan. And therefore, he takes a lot of criticism for the fact that they just, they were really close against this team. And that's not something that can really happen. For the United States, if you're really close, if you're close at any basketball game and you're on the United States, that's seen as a disgrace in a lot of people's eyes. But like Anthony Davis said, win by a mile or win by an inch, a win is a win. So it doesn't really matter to me that they ended up being close, because they just showed that they can really triumph when the games are getting really close. No, it's no big deal, at least to me. Obviously, it's a big deal to a lot of people. Now, really, the Germany, they have a lot of, they have NBA talent on the team as well. One of the few countries that actually has NBA talent, I should say, one of the few countries that's known for having NBA talent, because there are countries that do have NBA talent, but not many people really speak highly of them or really know that they have NBA talent. But, that's one of the teams that's fantastic at basketball. So it's and they are a threat to the United States. They definitely are a threat, but I really don't see this as a problem for Team USA. Really don't. But, anything can happen. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with the list that I had going before, because I'm almost down to the last few picks. I only have 4 more left to go. So the 11th pick, Mataz Buzelis for the Chicago Bulls. He ended up finishing with 28 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 steals against the Warriors, and was also able to record double-digit points in the other 4 games that he ended up playing, which is very, very promising for Chicago. Now, the way he gets his points is actually what impressed a lot of people the most. Like, his shot attempts came off of cuts, drives to the rim, spot ups in transition, and some other and like that's really like, basic stuff that a lot of that, while it's basic, is very valuable in this league. And with the Bulls looking for someone to rebuild around, and while they're trying to trade Zach LaVine, this guy is a very solid pickup in these 5 games, that at least just judging off of the 5 games. So I'm gonna have to give him an A or an A-, one of the two. I'm leaning more towards, a low A as opposed to an A-, but, still a very solid pickup for the Chicago Bulls team. Next, we have the 12 overall pick, Nikola Topic. Now, unfortunately, he ended up not playing in the Summer League due to his torn ACL, so I'm not giving him a grade. Obviously, that wouldn't be fair. Then there's Devin Carter, also didn't play in the Summer League, recovering from a shoulder injury, so I'm not giving him a grade either because it would just not be fair. And next, we have Carlton Carrington for the Washington Wizards, arguably the best pick that the Wizards got out of the draft. And he was way better than Alexander Sarr. That is for sure. Way better than how he played. Now, he played against the Bucks. He ended up getting 13 points and also recorded 15 rebounds, as well as 5 assists and 2 steals. He ended up stuffing the stat sheets against this team, and he was also a very common stat stuffer in his college career with Pittsburgh. But it seems that the Wizards, they found a really good pickup. If Alexander is going to be a bust, then you have Carlton Carrington over there just in case. It's a very funny last name, I will say. But, he just turned 19, so there is plenty of time for him to actually, get better as, the time evolves and as the season evolves. So, based off of those performances and the fact that, he is a lower pick in the draft, I do have to give him an A. That is a very solid pickup. They have someone to rely on just in case Alex Sarr doesn't pan out to be the player that they want him to be. Now, that's going to be all that I have for you guys on this podcast, and that's really all that I have for today in this final segment. So thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show. Leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. As I said before, I don't know if I made it clear enough with my predictions, but as I said before, I have a feeling that Team USA is going to be all right against Germany. It doesn't matter that they almost lost to South Sudan. A win is a win. And really, that's all the opinions that I have for you guys. Also, please remember to use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment. Really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. That is GSMCPodcast.net. Thank you so much for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care. Be sure to watch USA play some basketball later in just 1 hour from now, 3 o'clock Eastern Time. Take care, all you guys.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn.